I don't, Aradhana. Hi, Bo.
All right, both. It's good to hear your voice.
Good to hear yours.
Sending you a big hug.
Me too.
Al parecer yo soy la primera pregunta y voy a preguntar en inglés primero, luego me voy a traducir. Para que sepan por qué no se oye nada.
All right, both Gurudev. Pranam.
Buenos días, Gurudev
Let me
Pranam.
get everything together. Okay. Alrighty. So it's good to see you. Is there anything you want to share before you take the questions? How are things?
Me alegro
Things are
verlo.
okay.
¿Hay algo que quiera compartir antes de empezar? Gurmar
It's
dice, todo está bien.
what I call a kind of a Ganga morning here because all the moisture has.
Es una mañana
You know,
de
live
Ganges,
mostly
como
above the
le digo
clouds
yo,
here.
porque hay
Clouds have settled in
estas
just
nubes
below
que,
us.
que
We're riding
vienen
on top of them.
por detrás de las montañas y
So
luego llenan todo el valle
I
y
compare it to
parece
the Ganga
un río de vapor. Y
running through Audarya. It's a nice,
me
nice
parece un
morning.
ganga de
It's been a
vapor, es
nice,
una buena mañana.
nice month here.
Ha sido un buen mes aquí.
Getting a lot of things done and
Hicimos muchas cosas, acabamos muchas cosas.
and my book is slowly going along at a
Mi
reasonable
libro
pace.
está
Lita Saki's
progresando.
been
Lalita
busy
Saki
with that, and
está ocupada haciendo
I'm
eso
enthusiastic. We'll go into the layout phase.
y nos estamos acercando a la
hopefully
fase
within a
del
month or so,
layout. Tal
maybe a little
vez
more.
en un mes o más
So that's good.
deberíamos pasar a
But
esta
otherwise,
fase.
let's go ahead and take the
Y si no,
questions.
vamos con las preguntas.
Okay. So there's only one question. So if someone has a question, just message me and let me know. And yeah, so Shama Sundar has a question.
Okay.
Pranam Gurumar, can you hear me?
I can. Good morning.
Good morning to you. I'm gonna have to translate myself after, so I'll try to be concise, but it's one of those wordy questions on relative and absolute, and sometimes I think of those interviews that Prabhupada was giving to these reporters and professors that would come all the way to interview him, and he would kind of sound short and almost prepotent to them. And as a grand disciple, I'm there thinking, oh, why would he do that? And as he also said, you thought like that about him. So there is that part, or say Bhaktisiddhanta using leather shoes, but that was for preaching. So there is a moment in which the disciple or grand disciple has to recognize that once you accept that the absolute is coming down through one person, with whatever personality, bank account, political correctness they have, the onus is on the disciples to harmonize with the relativity in the Guru and recognize the absolute principle. And also because the other way around wouldn't work. If the Guru has to harmonize the sensibility and sensitivity to every disciple, it's just not the teaching, and it's not who is surrendering to whom. At the same time, kind of begs the question. Somebody could say, well, he's wearing leather shoes for preaching, and he can be rude because he's a sadhu. And then, what about justice? What about so? Because we've had gurus in the 80s that were like robbing banks and doing drugs, and to their disciples, they were how the absolute is coming down to them, and they should have done their duty. Because sometimes you say that if Prabhupada told you to drive the vans with books and everything into the ocean, you would have done it, and that would have been the glorious thing to do for a disciple. Because even if the guru is wrong in any way, if as long as the disciple does do their part, there's only glory in that. But so I was wondering, how do you harmonize the relativity and the absolute aspect of Sri Guru? I'm going to translate it. Mi pregunta es sobre el lado relativo y absoluto del guru, porque
Could you repeat the question?
hay entrevistas de
Not
Srila
everyone
Prabhupada
can
donde él era
hear what
bastante
Shamsundar
rudo
is
con los
saying, especially on the
periodistas y los
recording of it.
profesores que iban a hablarle.
Repeat it the best you
O
can.
también se puede ver el ejemplo de
Yeah.
Bhaktisiddhanta, que
Okay.
tenía zapatos de
Wait, should I do
piel.
it now while he's saying it in Spanish?
Y uno dice, bueno, eran zapatos de piel por la prédica, y Prabhupada,
do it now,
o sea,
I
el
think.
discípulo, el
Okay, he's
nieto,
asking about
tiene que
the
armonizar y
idea
decir
that
y ver
there's
el lado
relativity
absoluto
to the
del guru.
guru and absolute.
Pero
And
porque,
the
claro, el
philosophy
discípulo
is
tiene
that
que
once we
armonizarse
accept
a
that the
todo
guru
el
is
lado
actually a
personal,
conduit for
la visión del guru como
for,
persona, como individuo.
uh,
Y porque claro que no se puede hacer lo
connect
opuesto.
this
El
with
guru no
with the
puede
Godhead.
ir
He
a
actually has
armonizar
deep
todas las visiones de
spiritual
cada discípulo,
standing.
porque eso quién es
We've been able
que se abandona a
to
quién. Al mismo tiempo, uno
ascertain
podría
that his or
decir,
her faith
pero vamos a ver, uno que
is
lleva zapatos
deep
de
and
cuero, pero es
ultimately
por la prédica, y luego
driving
otro es un sadhu y
him
puede
or
ser
her.
rudo tanto cuanto
Then,
quiera.
despite the fact
Pero
that
no hay un sentido
relatively
de
he or she
justicia,
may have
o sea, ¿cómo vamos a hacer? Porque hay
personality
gurús en los
differences,
80s que
idiosyncrasies,
robaban bancos y hacían
ways of
cualquier
dealing
droga,
that
tomaban cualquier droga,
we
y
might
para sus
not,
discípulos ellos
or
también eran el enlace con el
that
absoluto, la manera,
even
a
culturally
través de esa
speaking,
persona el gurú se presenta como el absoluto.
might
Entonces, ¿cómo
seem
armonizar el lado
embarrassing to us in one
relativo y
culture
absoluto
when the
del gurú?
guru is from
Ahora
another
Guru Maharaj
culture and
está
speaks. He gave the
traduciendo, está
example of
repitiendo mi
Prabhupada
pregunta.
sometimes speaking with reporters, and you kind of wish he would have said it differently or something like that. He gave the example of Bhaktisiddhanta adopting certain things, relatively speaking, for the sake of preaching, like wearing leather shoes, which, many disciples might have thought, oh my God, he's wearing leather shoes. This is terrible, Or to make a more extreme example, at one point he said, was prepared to serve meat to the Western, people, leaders, let's say, British, to have them come to Mayapur and hear, Harikatha from him and so forth. And this was staggering to the faith of Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj. He confessed, and to Prabhupada as well, at least initially. Whoa. But they nonetheless
Guru Maharaj sigue
embraced the
repitiendo mi
absolute and
pregunta
saw what
porque no se
Bhaktisiddhanta
escucha
was
en
doing
YouTube.
in terms of the larger
Entonces está
picture,
diciendo la versión en inglés.
and thus they were able to digest that and so forth. So his question is about that, and he made the point that, well, it can't go the other way around. In other words, it should go because the guru is spiritual, has spiritual standing, and despite the fact that, relatively speaking, he may say or do, or his idiosyncrasies may be such that there are times disconcerting to the disciple, that should be seen as relative, and the absolute consideration should take precedence. And he said in his question that conversely, it's not going to work out, that the guru has to conform to all the relative sensibilities of the disciples in order for them to have faith in him. That's obviously not going to work. But then he gave some extreme examples of gurus. There were some gurus in ISKCON that were, after Prabhupada's departure, who were doing some very unsavory things. They were robbing stores, having disciples rob gas stations, and one of them anyway. And and shooting guns at liquor stores and the weird things. I don't know all the details, but those are a couple things that I've heard. And so, what about that? So he asked me anyway to speak about that, and I think that his question in itself
Su pregunta en sí
really
misma, dice
largely
Guru Maharaj,
answers
se contesta a sí
the
sola,
question as he reasoned about it.
así como razonó,
But the examples that
pero
Sriram brings up
los
that are
ejemplos
extreme
que me dio son
are obviously,
extremos,
another thing altogether.
son otra cosa. El
So,
guru que robaba los bancos y disparaba a
what
las
constitutes
gasolineras.
Vaishnavachara, the
Entonces,
proper behavior of the
lo
disciple,
que es
of a
Vaishnava
guru,
Achara, lo que es el
is more of
comportamiento
a
apropiado de un
broader
guru,
category than it is
es una
fine, detailed
categoría mucho más ancha de lo que es enfocarse en los detalles finos,
determination that's going to conform with
determinaciones
whatever it is, political
de
correctness,
moralidad, de correcteza política,
psychological insights of the modern
psicología,
day,
según lo
maybe
que se
good, but
piensa en el día de
relative,
hoy.
and so on and so forth.
Todo lo
That's one
relativo.
thing, but he or she is
Esta es otra cosa.
obviously
Pero si el guru
doing something extraordinary,
está haciendo algo
for example, as in the
extraordinario,
case of Bhaktisiddhanta
como en el
Saraswati
caso de
Thakur,
Srila
and then say he
Bhaktisiddhanta
would serve
Saraswati,
meat, well, you have
con
to
los
put the two
zapatos de
together.
piel,
He's not doing anything
hasta
extraordinary.
estaba dispuesto a servir carne a los británicos, pero hay que ponerlo en contexto porque lo demás de su
meat
vida,
himself, I mean, then it would be rather
él mismo no
an
comía carne.
extreme, I think, and so we have to use some common sense.
Entonces hay que usar el
we've
sentido
got
común.
others to speak with.
Tenemos a otras
we've got
personas
examples,
con quien
precedents
hablar,
over the
tenemos
history of the
precedentes
Sampradaya.
de la
And we've
historia
got
del
a very
Sampradaya
important statement.
y también tenemos una afirmación muy importante
I believe it's cited in Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'm
en
not
el
sure
Chaitanya
of the
Charitamrita,
origin,
no
but
estoy seguro de
Vaishnavara
su origen,
Kriyamudra Vignana Buddhaya. So
donde se dice que el
it's difficult to
comportamiento de un
understand
Vaishnava es difícil de
the
comprender.
Vaishnava, his heart, his or her heart motivation. And the classic example,
El ejemplo clásico,
or one of them,
o uno
is of
de
course
ellos,
that of Pundarik Vidyanidhi,
es
who
el de
was
Pundarika
misunderstood
Vidyanidhi, que
externally by
no lo
Gadadhar
comprendió,
Pandit.
Gadadhar Pandit no lo comprendió.
But when Mukunda
Pero cuando
cited some
Mukunda citó
that
un
caused him
verso
to go into bhava, it was
que
apparent that
hizo
he was
que
very
Pundarika
deep. And there's even
Vidyanidhi
a statement in
entró
Chaitanya
en el bhava.
Charitamrita, or excuse me, in
Ahí
Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu,
Gadadhar Pandit se dio
in the
cuenta.
section about Bhava Bhakti, that
Y
one in Bhava
hay
Bhakti
otra afirmación
may
que dice que un devoto en Bhava Bhakti
show some blemishes or
puede
do something
tener
untoward
defectos,
or that is out of
meter la pata de alguna
character
forma,
and so
su
forth.
carácter,
But that should be dismissed in
pero
light
esto
of
es algo que habría que
greater
descartar a la
reality
luz de la
of
realidad más
his or her,
grande que él o ella,
absorption.
en que él o ella está absorto.
Perhaps we could cite Maharaj Parikshit as an example.
También se puede hablar
What
de
he
Maharaj
did,
Parikshit,
losing his temper, garlanding the sage with a
cuando
snake,
él perdió la
a dead
paciencia y le
because the
puso una
sage
serpiente muerta como guirnalda
did not
a este
greet him,
rishi que estaba en
honor him
meditación
properly.
y
He
no
is
le
the
saludó
emperor.
así como se le saluda a un rey.
How the heck did that happen?
O sea, uno
It's
se
out
puede
of
preguntar,
character
¿cómo puede
for
ser que un
Maharaj
devoto como
Parikshit,
Parikshit
but he
Maharaj
did it.
pudiese hacer algo así? Pero sí lo hizo.
So we can judge him by that, or we can
Entonces
judge
podemos
him
juzgar a Parikshit
further,
Maharaj debido a eso,
and
o
should, by the
debido,
fact
en
that
base
he then
a,
proceeded to fast
al hecho que, por ejemplo, se puso a ayunar
and listen to the Bhagavatam
y
with
se puso a
rapt
escuchar el
attention,
Bhagavatam con
which
muchísima
then
atención,
illustrates that he had
que
another
ilustra,
internal
de hecho,
reality
que él
that
tenía una
was
realidad
more
interior
substantial
que era más
than the superficial
substancial
and
de lo que fue su
external
comportamiento
behavior in that
superficial y
instant. Of course, we can
externo.
say Krishna was behind it,
También se puede decir que
and
Krishna
that
estaba
caused
detrás
the
de
Bhagavatam to
todo
be spoken,
y hizo
and so on and so
que el
forth. And you
Bhagavatam
can
saliera, que
look
el
at it
discurso
in
del
that way.
Bhagavatam saliera de
Or
esa
it can
forma.
just be,
O
as I
también
say,
uno puede
citing,
decir,
as I have Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, every guru is going to have his or her humanness,
como dice el Bhaktisiddhanta Sindhu,
idiosyncrasies.
cada guru tiene
They
su
may forget
humanidad,
things,
puede
Prabhupada quoting
olvidar
wrong
cosas.
verses, sometimes
Prabhupada
half of one
empezaba un
verse, half of
verso y lo
another.
acababa con la mitad de
I
otro
saw
verso.
Prabhupada fall asleep during kirtan.
Yo vi Prabhupada durmiéndose
More than
durante un
once.
kirtan, más que una
In the
vez.
morning we would have kirtan.
Por la mañana
We would have
teníamos
Bhagavatam.
kirtan.
He would rise early in the morning.
Él se
And,
levantaba muy de madrugada, madrugaba mucho.
and I mean, I think he'd take rest around 10. He would get up around 1. Mhm. I
Él
mentioned
iba
once
a
before that I had
acostarse
the
a las 10
opportunity
y se
once
levantaba a la 1. Mencioné
in
en pasado
Krishna
que
Balaram Temple to be staying
una
in a
vez en el
room
Krishna Balaram Mandir
that
estaba
had
en un
a
cuarto que
window
tenía
to
una
the
ventana
balcony
sobre
of
el
Prabhupada's
balcón de
quarters.
Prabhupada.
And so I got up in the middle of the night to
Y yo
answer the
me
call of
levanté
nature.
para ir al
There,
baño
through the window, I
y a
saw
través de la
Prabhupada
ventana vi a
translating. It was like
Prabhupada
1 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning.
traduciendo a la
And
1, a
so
las
I
3 de
just
la
stayed up all
mañana.
night and watched him.
Entonces me
But
quedé ahí mirándola.
that was, as far as I could tell, typically his schedule. And then
Y típicamente él hacía así
by
todos los días y
sometimes he would walk and pace a little bit and chant, sit,
a veces se ponía a caminar y cantar
and
para quedarse despierto.
by about 6:15
Y alrededor de las
in
6,
the
6 y
morning he would go for a
cuarto
walk. Right?
iba a hacer
And so he's been
su
up since 1 in the morning. He'd go for a walk. I was blessed to go
paseo
on a number of those walks. Then he would return
con
to the
sus
temple,
discípulos, luego volvía.
especially in the early days in Los Angeles. It's very
En Los Ángeles, por
charming and
ejemplo,
endearing
era muy
times for me to
cautivante,
recall. When I
un periodo
see
muy cautivante
films
cuando él
now of those times
salía
and the
del templo de Los
devotees,
Ángeles. Ahora se ven películas donde se
it's
ve que
just so
salía
endearing. I know them all. I knew they
y
were
yo
in their
conozco a todos estos
swarups of
devotos
that time, their bhakti swarups,
y
if you
yo
will,
conocía el Swarup de
fully
todos ellos, el Bhakti Swarup,
absorbed
en que
in
estaban
service.
absortos.
I always think of them, in light of that time. So anyway, then Prabhupada
Siempre
would come into
pienso
the
en ellos.
temple, pay his
Luego
respects to the
Prabhupada
deities, because the
volvía,
different altars come,
se
sit on the
postraba ante las
asana,
deidades,
chant,
luego se empezaba a cantar,
and give class, and after the class they'd
luego
chant
daba
again. So a
clase
couple of
y
times
luego se
during
cantaba
either of
más.
those chantings, earlier or later,
Y un
I
par
saw
de
him
veces
nod off a
durante
little bit. I just
estos
thought, well, I guess
kirtans,
he's tired.
yo vi que
He's
se
been
caía
up
como
since 1 in the
dormido y yo
morning,
solo pensé,
early.
bueno, debe
So,
estar cansado.
but someone could say, what's this? The
Pero
guru's
uno
falling
podría
asleep
decir,
during chanting.
¿qué,
Obviously,
qué
he
le
has
pasa a
not
este
attained
guru
nishta,
se queda dormido durante un
So,
kirtan en vez de tener gusto para
there's
el kirtan?
that. So,
Entonces hay
and
este
I think that,
aspecto
also I think that
y
if we take the time
si tomamos
to
el
really
tiempo
try to
de
understand
realmente tratar de
Sri Guru
entender Sri
personally,
Guru
if we have the opportunity,
personalmente, si tenemos la
and
oportunidad,
in doing so, we can take advice from those who know him very well, or her
y si
very well, and
tomamos
live
consejo de los
with
que
her
lo
over the
conocen
years,
muy
and so on
bien
and so forth,
durante los años, etcétera,
we can grow in terms of our
podemos
love for the
crecer en
person
términos de
of the
nuestro
Guru.
amor para este
We
Guru.
think how,
Si
there's really nothing
pensamos
in this here.
que
I mean, preaching is a thankless task, Prabhupada used to say.
no hay
There is
ninguna
something I
ganancia
can
en esto.
say. I mean,
La
it's a
prédica
difficult task.
es un reto
It's
ingrato.
often the extent to which the guru puts out
La
what I put
medida
out.
en que el
This is my
Guru
experience for
se
my disciples,
extiende
being patient with them, compassion with
y
them,
siendo
overlooking
paciente,
things that
compasivo, mirando para otro lado con respecto
they've
a otros
done.
defectos de sus discípulos.
My concern is always somehow or other to keep them connected in the
Mi
ballpark
preocupación es
of
siempre de
Krishna consciousness,
tenerlos a
despite
todos
so many
involucrados en lo que es la
distractions
conciencia
that
de
they
Krishna, a
have,
pesar de todas
even
las distracciones que
things that they
tengan
do that are
y cosas
unpleasant
que
and
hacen que puedan ser no muy
even
placenteras,
bordering on being offensive at times. It's happened over the
hasta el
years.
límite de ser
To the extent to which
ofensivos.
I feel for them
Pero
and
en la
wait
medida
for them
en que yo
and patiently
siento en
try,
relación con
compassionately
ellos
try
y
to
espero
help
y soy
them,
paciente, trato de ayudarlos,
it's often not reciprocated back in kind. I don't get
muchas
the
veces, a
same type
menudo
of,
no la veo de
but
vuelta,
that's the job.
pero
if
este
you
es
will.
el trabajo del
So,
guru.
and it's just part of the territory.
Y es
But
parte del
over
territorio.
time, I think that
Pero con el tiempo,
devotees will feel that
los devotos que
about their
sienten,
guru, and
que
that
se
will
sienten así en
override
relación al guru
relative concerns to the
y tienen
point that
consideraciones
even
relativas
relative concerns
a tal punto que sus consideraciones
in the
relativas del discípulo
idiosyncrasies of the guru will turn into something charming rather than problematic. the relative will turn into something
Bueno,
charming.
para algunos devotos,
and
las
it
idiosincrasias,
might be a problem for
del
some
gurú
outside person. But the one who
se
has love for
convierten
the
en
guru,
algo cautivante. Puede ser un problema para alguien
and
fuera del
knows
sangha,
him or her,
pero para el
then
discípulo, los defectos del gurú son algo
the problem
cautivante.
will
Pues si uno lo
resolve.
conoce y
Indeed,
lo
the
ama,
relative becomes part of the
los
absolute.
problemas se resuelven y de hecho
That becomes
lo
another problem.
relativo se convierte en parte del
Because,
absoluto. Y esto
I've told the
ya no
story
es un
before how
problema. Ya
Tamal
dije
Krishna
muchas
Maharaj
veces
told
la
me that
historia de Tamal Krishna
and
Maharaj. Él
when
me
he would
dijo
ask
que una
Prabhupada a
vez,
question, yes or no, he'd say no and
cuando le
shake his head
preguntaba a
back and
Prabhupada una
forth. If you can
pregunta,
watch me,
cuando
which in
decía,
the Western culture means if he'd say
cuando
yes, he would
decía
move his head
sí,
like this.
él
Yes, 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 yes.
sacudía la cabeza de
Instead of
lado a
yes,
lado,
yes, 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 up
mientras,
and down, he would move it back and forth.
mientras cuando decía
So Tamal
no,
Krishna Maharaj
levantaba la
told me
cabeza.
that he
Entonces,
thought
Tamal
that
Krishna Maharaj pensó que
the
cuando una persona es
spiritual way
trascendental, la manera
to
espiritual
say
de decir
yes rather
sí
than the material way was to move,
es
horizontally.
el revés
The
de
material
lo
way was to
material. En el
move the
mundo
head up and
material
down.
no se hace sacudiendo la
So
cabeza de lado a
that's
lado,
what it kind
mientras
of goes to.
la manera
In the
trascendental
extreme,
es de
it becomes a little
es de
silly. But
decir
he
sí.
said, but then when they went to India, and I
Y
saw
luego
everybody goes like
Tamal
that.
Krishna Maharaj dijo, luego
It
fui a
moves
la
their
India
head
y vi que todo el
left to
mundo
right
hace
when
así.
saying
Es la
yes.
manera
And
india
then I
nada más,
realized
no es
it
la
was,
manera trascendental.
somewhat relative, although we never used terms like that in relation to Prabhupada. We never used
Entonces
the
me
term
di cuenta
relative
que
and
era algo
absolute. That's
relativo, pero
something Guru
nosotros
Maharaj,
nunca usamos el término
Sridhar Maharaj,
relativo en relación a Srila Prabhupada. Es algo que
the way in which he used to talk
Sridhar
about, which is
Maharaj,
very enlightening and
cuando él hablaba
insightful,
del
and
guru,
hence,
él hablaba en términos
the
de
question.
relativo
But
y
there is,
absoluto,
a
de
bit of a
forma
balancing
muy
act
iluminante y
that we
nos
may have to
animaba
do
con sus palabras.
in some instances,
Pero sí hay
and our
que...
own idiosyncrasies can get in the way, our own
Y luego tenemos nuestras
misconceptions,
propias
our own
relatividades,
ego.
idiosincrasias, nuestro
So,
ego,
we do have to be careful about
que nos
that.
va a trabar y tenemos que tener cuidado.
So, those are some thoughts on it. I mean,
Estos son unos pensamientos.
again, the extremes that you mentioned,
Los extremos,
robbing
ejemplos extremos que
the
me dijiste
grocery
de
stores and things
robar
like that. Well,
a tiendas,
that's another thing, right?
esta es otra cosa.
But idiosyncrasies of the
Pero las
personality,
pequeñas idiosincrasias
forgetting
del guru,
things, saying it one way one time,
que
one way
diga una
another
cosa
time.
un día, otra cosa otro día, o olvidando cosas,
He or
las
she may not even
imperfecciones
be
del
paying
guru.
attention to the extent that we
A lo
think he or
mejor
she is
no es,
to the
el
immediate
guru no le está haciendo
concerns
caso a estas
of
cosas que para el
ourselves and
discípulo
so
son
forth.
detalles tan
I
importantes.
saw Prabhupada
Yo vi
repeatedly
Prabhupada
do what I would call wrestle himself down from another plane to deal
claramente
with
luchando para
relative
bajar al
things that
plan donde
in
estaba
the broader
yo,
picture don't have a lot to do with
para ocuparse de
self-realization
cosas que no tenían
and
nada que ver con la realización
controlling the mind, the
espiritual.
senses, and
Y él, sin embargo,
expressing
bajaba a mi
oneself
nivel para interactuar conmigo.
heartfully in bhakti, but were important because of relative considerations in the world, the condition of the disciples, and so forth. But he
Eran
would wrestle
cosas
himself down to deal with it.
importantes a nivel
And
de los
sometimes he was
discípulos, en
very,
interacciones de los discípulos, y
I
él
mean,
tenía que...
very brief. And I mean, he said things like,
Y también otras veces
like for example, when Vishnu Jan Maharaj
vi
was
que
a famous sannyasi
cuando
disciple
Vishnu
of
Jan
Prabhupada,
Maharaj,
when I was the last person to speak with him,
yo
on the roof of the
yo fui la
building
última
Mayapur,
persona a hablar con Vishnu Jan Maharaj
before
antes que se
he
quitara la vida.
disappeared that same day. And where he had gone was
Bueno,
in question
desapareció,
for some
había
time.
desaparecido.
And then
Y
some
nadie sabía dónde se
other
había
disciples
metido.
put together some evidence to make a
Algunos
convincing case that
discípulos
he had hired a boatman
colectaron
and
unas evidencias
out
y
into the Ganga, and he had committed suicide. And there's a whole
descubrieron
background
que
to that morning earlier,
rentó un
walking on the
barco y
roof
se
with
fue al
Prabhupada, and he
Ganges y
asked
se
Prabhupada a
suicidó.
question.
Luego le
He had
preguntaron a
asked a question if
Prabhupada
a sannyasi should fall
que...
down.
No,
and given
luego
the
Vishnu
example
Jan
of
le había
Chota
preguntado
Haridas,
a
the
Prabhupada que si
example
un
of Chota
sannyasi
Haridas is there in the Chaitanya
tuviese que
Charitamrita.
caer,
And he was living with widows, or not living with widows. He approached a widow.
por ejemplo, hay la historia de Chota Haridas, que era un devoto de Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, y se había acercado a una viuda. Sin embargo, un sannyasi no debería interactuar con viudas ni ninguna mujer. Entonces, en su Acharya Lila, Mahaprabhu tuvo que dar el ejemplo por muy extremo. Entonces rechazó a Chota Haridas. Entonces en su comentario, Prabhupada dijo que entonces si un sannyasi sale del sendero debería suicidarse. Y esto es lo que hizo Chota Haridas.
Mahaprabhu
Y haciendo así,
his
Mahaprabhu,
mercy came to him, appeared to him after
en
his
su
suicide
misericordia,
and so
le
on. So,
apareció a
so
Chota Haridas
Vishnu
después
Jan,
del
maybe
suicidio.
he had some slip up
Entonces,
somewhere along the line. It may have been
Vishnu
something that he
Jan
just exaggerated in his mind.
a lo mejor hizo
Because he's
algo
quite
que
a
en
nice
su mente
devotee
exageró,
with good character. But anyway,
porque él era un
he
devoto de
apparently
muy buen
did that.
carácter.
So
Pero
later,
al parecer hizo algo
it was sometime later that Prabhupada was told that
y
Vishnu Jan
tiempo después le
Maharaj had committed
dijeron a
suicide. And
Prabhupada
Prabhupada
que
said, what can I
Vishnu
do if he
Jan
doesn't want to serve?
se había suicidado. Y Prabhupada solo
That's all
dijo,
he said.
¿y qué puedo
Sounds
hacerle yo?
very
Si no quiere
harsh,
servir,
very
y
like,
esto es lo único que
whoa,
dijo
imagine if
Prabhupada.
I said
Puede
that.
parecer muy duro,
It'd
pero
be an explosion. But
imagínese
at
si
least
lo dijera yo, explotaría
digested
todo.
it.
Pero
And we knew
nosotros
that
tuvimos
Prabhupada
que
loved Vishnu Jan
digerirlo.
Maharaj, but
Y
he
sabemos que
responded in that.
Prabhupada le
I
quería
mean,
a
again,
Vishnu
he's
Jan
on another
Maharaj,
plane. He's absorbed
pero
somewhere else. He comes down to deal with it.
su
In the
absorción
world
está
where
en
we
otro
are,
plan.
where
Él tiene
certain
que
things are
bajar
more
a nuestro
important
plan. Algunas cosas son más
to
importantes que
us than
otras.
they may be in the larger picture.
Y lo que es importante para nosotros puede
I
que
give
no
an
sea
example like
para
that.
él
That
de la
sounds
misma
shocking to
forma.
you,
También
perhaps,
otro ejemplo
how
que
he
les va a
responded.
chocar.
But I have no doubt that Prabhupada loved Vishnu Jan Maharaj, and exactly why he said that.
Yo no tengo duda que
Maybe example
Prabhupada
he was trying
amaba a
to
Vishnu Jan
show
Maharaj, no
us.
sé por qué
I don't
dijo
know, or
así.
just the fact that
A lo mejor para
he was
darnos el
half
ejemplo, a lo
somewhere
mejor
else
porque su cabeza estaba en otro
at
lugar.
the time and not as plugged into it as some of the other students were. We thought
Tanto
he should
como lo
be.
estaban sus
It's
estudiantes.
not
Sus
our position to
estudiantes se
decide
esperaban que
how
Prabhupada
absorbed he should be in any particular
dijera
aspect
palabras más
of the
compasivas,
mission
más,
and the
yo qué
relativity
sé,
that
sobre este
is
discípulo que se quitó la vida.
shows its face there and so forth. But we try to do both, obviously.
Pero claro, nosotros tratamos de
tend to
hacer
the
ambas
relative
cosas.
concerns.
Si hay
Disciples set a
consideraciones
good
relativas,
example.
el discípulo
And,
tiene que dar el buen
And
ejemplo.
that largely, of course, means with regard to, the actual practice that they were teaching, an example of that, good moral character and so forth. So
Y eso también tiene que
those are
ver
some
con
thoughts. It's a large topic that's come up, a
esos
number
son
of
unos
times over the
pensamientos.
years, because it was quite revolutionary to hear the relative and absolute of the guru. When,
Pero para
from
nosotros
Pujapad
fue
Sridhar Maharaj,
muy
when previously,
revolucionario
we
cuando
only heard the Guru's
Srila
absolute.
Sridhar Maharaj se puso a hablar del lado
And
relativo
so,
del guru.
To sometimes bring up, well, Prabhupada is saying this, it's relative, and this is the
Muchas
teaching,
veces
this is
él
the
nos decía
absolute.
como lo que dijo
It's been
Prabhupada en algún lugar era relativo y
a
para nosotros,
minefield to navigate,
o sea,
if
es
you
como
will,
un campo minado,
especially with Prabhupada's disciples, some of whom it's
especialmente
taken
con los
me
discípulos de
years
Prabhupada, que
to
para
gradually
ellos,
bring them
ellos tomaron
into,
años para para
to resolve these types
ajustarse a
of
la idea
things,
que el grupo
even with
pudiese
Prabhupada.
tener un
Prabhupada
lado
said this,
relativo.
and
Y
just
siempre se vienen con, pero Prabhupada dijo esto,
resolve
Prabhupada
or
dijo el
shed
otro.
light on the whole idea that there's a relative and there's an absolute side to the guru. It's taken me years. It's very difficult to do that. It's very difficult
Es
to
muy
build
difícil
faith. It's
construir
very
la
easy to
fe,
tear it down.
es muy fácil
That
derrotarla.
that should be considered.
Eso
So,
también hay que considerarlo.
I hope that helps.
Espero que te
Shyam,
ayudó.
any further questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, good. It was well
Dice, bueno,
stated question, I think, and I think as
es
you
una
say,
pregunta que dijiste
as I said, the
muy,
answer would lie
formulaste
in the
muy
question
bien,
as you presented it itself.
y la
I only tried
respuesta
to
se encuentra en la
elaborate
pregunta,
upon
así
it.
como la dijiste, yo solo elaboré.
But yeah, and Sridhar Maharaj also did some
Y Sridhar Maharaj
odd things. I
también
remember once,
hizo una cosa muy
if
rara,
I may
unas cosas muy
continue,
raras. Si
just
puedo
a thought
continuar
comes
con
to mind.
esto,
Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami
Bhakti
Maharaj
Pramod
had
Puri
two
Goswami Maharaj
sannyasi disciples,
tenía dos
Udayan Maharaj
sannyasis,
and Bhagavad
discípulos,
Maharaj.
Bhagavat
And Bhagavad
Maharaj
Maharaj
y Narayan Maharaj,
was
creo.
from a Brahmin
Y
family,
Bhagat Maharaj era de
and
una
from the
familia brahmana,
Varnashram
brahmínica. Y
point
del
of
punto
view,
de vista
he
del
was from a
Varnashram,
higher Brahmin
él era
family
más
than
elevado
Puri Goswami Maharaj.
que Puri Goswami
Bodhayan Maharaj
Maharaj.
was not from a
Bodhayan
Brahmin
Maharaj
family.
no era de una familia brahmana,
Quite sure he was from a Vaishya family.
creo que era Vaishya.
Bhagavad Maharaj was very learned,
Bhagavat Maharaj tenía mucha sabiduría
a very good speaker,
y era un orador
and
muy,
a
muy,
very
muy
good
bueno.
kind of a person to be like a
Y
successor.
era un
carry
candidato
on and,
muy bueno para
represent
ser
the
el
teachings.
sucesor
quite
de
good.
Puri Maharaj.
And Puri Maharaj sent him even to Vrindavan to
Y Puri
to
Maharaj lo envió
learn the
a
different
Vrindavan, lo mandó a
darshans,
Vrindavan
the
para
darshan
aprender los
and
diferentes
forms of
darshanas
Vedanta and
filosóficos,
so
el
forth. So he
Vedanta.
was taking advantage of his learniness and
Entonces
so forth.
se estaba aventajando de
And
su
Bodhi Maharaj,
sabiduría.
by contrast,
Mientras Bodhaya
was
Maharaj,
simply serving Puri
por
Goswami Maharaj
contraste,
day and night.
solo servía a Puri
Who,
Maharaj
bedridden. He was
día y noche.
over 100 years old at that
Como
time.
tenía como 100
And
años y estaba prácticamente viviendo en su
I
cama.
once mentioned a verse from Bhakti Sindhu.
Una
See, I
vez,
read that book. So he was not studied at all.
una vez yo le
Comparatively, at
cité un
all.
verso del Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu y Bodhaya Maharaj dijo, sí, me
And
escuché, yo oí sobre este
But
libro.
Puri
O
Maharaj
sea, él no
chose him
estudiaba mucho,
as
la
his
verdad.
successor
Pero Puri
over
Maharaj escogió a Bodhaya
Bhagavad
Maharaj
Maharaj.
como su sucesor en vez
And
que
Bhagavad
Bhagavad
Maharaj
Maharaj. Y Bhagavad
took
Maharaj
exception to this,
como
because
que
he
se
was from a higher
ofendió
Brahmin family.
porque él era de una familia
Even if
brahmana
Puri
más
Maharaj would
elevada,
speak of
aún más
Bodhaya
elevada que la
Maharaj,
de Puri Maharaj,
and
ni hablar de Bodhaya Maharaj,
Brahmins
que
is
era
a
Vaishya.
teacher. So if
El
you're
brahmana es
within
un
Vaishnavism and you
enseñante.
have a Brahmin as well, that's
Entonces,
kind of the first choice or direction you look at for someone to
la
represent you in
primera
sort of the terms of
opción,
the
si
teachings
hay
that argued
entre un
with Puri
brahmana y un
Maharaj.
Vaishya para ser
And
enseñante, predicador,
Puri
sería
Maharaj
de escoger el
wouldn't give
brahmana.
in. He told
Pero
bhakti is
Puri
more
Maharaj
important than gyan. You have knowledge, but
siempre
Bodhaya
dijo, no,
Maharaj
el
has more
bhakti
bhakti,
siempre es
even though he
más
doesn't have
importante que el
the
jnana.
knowledge that you have.
Y Bodhaya Maharaj tiene
And
mucho más bhakti
well, I'm kind of off on a
del
tangent here,
conocimiento que tienes tú.
but Bhagavad Maharaj couldn't
Pero Bhagavad
couldn't
Maharaj
accept it.
no lo pudo aceptar.
And he was told to leave them off.
Y al final dejó el Bhakti.
His ego, got the best of him. He
Su
saw himself
ego
as more qualified than he was.
le
But
ganó y
the
él se
reason
veía más cualificado de lo que era.
I bring that up, it
Y la
gets a bit of a
razón
tangent, but
por qué estoy diciendo esto es que son,
Bhagavad Maharaj, who
ya
was
casi no
very
está conectado con tu pregunta,
particular about how
es que
everything should be done,
Bhagavad Maharaj
all the proper,
estaba muy preocupado sobre cómo se haría,
procedures,
todo
and everything
debería
was
que
very
hacerse, todos los rituales.
nitty, very concerned with. I mean, there had to be a certain pot that you would
O sea,
piss in from a certain
debía
direction,
haber
and you
un
had,
cierto
I went through this
pote
with
en el que
and I
orinar
just chuckled, I mean, at it.
hacia
This is all
cierta
important, very important,
dirección y
all
para
these
él,
things.
y a mí me hacía sonreír lo
And
que
they're all
para él
there
era
in the
importante.
scriptures, right?
Y esas son cosas que se
But it
encuentran en las
was getting in
escrituras.
the way
Cómo orinar, hacia qué
of the
dirección,
real
en qué
substance of the whole
receptáculo.
thing. Bhavagrahi Janardana.
Pero hay que
Krishna accepts
enfocarse en la
the spirit
esencia.
of the service,
Janardana
even
es
if the service
Bhavagrahi.
is done
Él acepta la
technically,
esencia de las
mechanically
cosas, a
wrong,
pesar
and
de
so
lo
forth.
muy incorrecto
So
que sean los
that,
detalles.
Reality, I mean, he could voice that, he could
Y esa
understand that,
realidad,
he could teach that, but he couldn't, when it came to practice,
Bhagavad Maharaj la
his
entendía, la
other
podía hasta
sensibilities
predicar que esto
took
era la
precedence.
verdad,
So,
pero
anyway,
cuando todo
long
se
story short,
resumió a su vida personal, su ejemplo personal,
I
no lo
once,
pudo
in this
digerir
regard,
y no lo
I
pudo
once told
entender.
him that
En
I
realidad.
watched Pujapati Maharaj, who was from a higher Brahmin family than
Yo
the
miré
Bhagavad Maharaj,
a Puri Maharaj
chanting japa with his japa beads
cantando
in his
japa
rocking chair
en su
and eating
silla
muri, which is like puffed rice,
y comiendo
with peanuts
arroz,
with his left hand, popping it
arroz
into his mouth as he
maní
chanted with his right
con su
hand.
mano
He just about
izquierda.
fainted, Bhagavad Maharaj.
Y
How
Bhagavad
could he
Maharaj
possibly,
casi se desmayó. ¿Cómo
it
puede
sounds
mi
like a
guru, que es un
simple thing,
brahmana,
we
comer
love
con la
you,
mano
I
izquierda
don't care if he
mientras está
if he ate
cantando
with
las
his feet,
rondas? Pero si uno tiene
It
amor
wouldn't
para
matter
Puri
to me,
Maharaj, no nos importaría ni
But for
siquiera
him,
si
it was
comiera
like a
con
big
sus
thing,
pies.
like, oh
Pero
my
para él
God,
era algo muy
how could he
importante.
possibly,
¿Cómo puede ser que
do
mi
that?
guru, un
And so
Vaishnava,
I
pueda
had
cantar
him
las
to
rondas y
chuckle,
comiendo
try
con la
to
mano izquierda?
give him a bigger picture. Me, the malecha.
Y yo me puse a reír, yo que soy un lecha,
But, it
tuve
didn't
que
go well for him
enseñarle
ultimately, as the
la
relative
visión más amplia,
got the upper
pero al
hand,
final
took precedence over the absolute.
no salió bien
Bodhi
y
Maharaj
la
did
consideración
not learn
relativa
today,
tuvo la
still
precedencia sobre la
comparatively,
consideración
but he's
absoluta.
carrying
Y
on the
Bodhi
mission of his
Maharaj
Guru
hasta la
Maharaj
fecha
around the world,
no es muy sabio, no
and,
tiene mucha sabiduría, mucho
succeeding
conocimiento,
in,
pero está predicando con éxito en cuanto
in
sucesor
a way
de Puri
that
Maharaj.
he so desired. So
de una forma que
anyway,
es la que quería
I just
Guru
brought it up
Maharaj.
because that's an example of Sridhar Maharaj also
Entonces es un ejemplo.
acting out of character, or what you
Sridhar
think
Maharaj
the
también
character might
actuó
be
muchas
or should
veces
be.
fuera del carácter
There are other
que
things
debía
he
ser
did
el de
too.
un Vaishnava. Hay otras
He
historias.
sometimes used to beat Govinda Maharaj.
Hay veces que él le pegaba a
his
Govinda
successor.
Maharaj, que era su sucesor.
And Govinda Maharaj used to say that
Y
he
Govinda
asked him,
Maharaj
could you do that
decía que
inside the room so others won't see?
puedes pegarme
So they
dentro
won't
del
think ill of
cuarto
you.
para
I
que
don't.
para
You're
que la
beating
gente no
me, but
piense,
others
para
may
que la
think,
gente no piense mal de ti.
Gurman's
Yo no
getting a little
pienso
angry
mal,
here, you know.
pero porque algunos discípulos pueden
A little
decir,
unfair.
el
All you
guru
do
se
is
está
this."
enojando,
But
no es
anyway,
feo,
so
no es justo.
yeah, those things are there.
Entonces sí,
But,
esto también se dio.
So yeah, what it means for the guru to be an
Entonces, ¿qué
example
quiere
of
decir?
good behavior and so forth? It's
Que el guru tiene que
relative
ser un
to that.
ejemplo
And
de buen
it's
comportamiento.
not,
Es
the
todo
disciple's
relativo.
not entirely the judge and the court and
Y
the
el
jury,
discípulo no es ni el juez, ni la
on that.
corte, ni el tribunal, ni el
Vaishnava,
juzgado.
again, Kriyamudra Vignana Bhujai. So to understand the heart of the Vaishnava,
Hay que entender
it's
el
not easy to
corazón de
do.
un Vaishnava y no es fácil.
Misunderstood his or her,
Es
misunderstand
muy
his or her
fácil
behavior. Be cautious
malentender
about that.
las intenciones y el comportamiento de un Vaishnava. Y las escrituras
Upanishadamrita tells us the same thing.
nos advierten, nos avisan
There are a lot of things floating in the Ganga,
que hay muchas
but the
cosas
Ganga is pure.
flotando
Don't
en el
think
Ganges,
otherwise.
pero el Ganges es puro, no piensen
That example is
nada
given with regard
más
to
que eso. Ese es un
guru
ejemplo que
or
se da
nice devotees who may
de
have
cómo comportarse en
physical
relación de un
defects, or
guru,
even
de
mentally they may
un devoto muy
conduct
avanzado,
themselves in
que
ways
puede tener
seem,
defectos físicos o
inappropriate
fallas
to
en
us.
su
It's
personalidad
possible.
que para nosotros puedan ser inapropiados, pero
So long
es posible.
answer
Pero
there.
bueno, respuesta larga, pero
Forgive me for,
perdónenme si
but
me demoré, pero
it's good. I appreciate the question. Are there
pero
any other
aprecio mucho
questions?
la pregunta y otras preguntas si las hay.
I saw a comment in the chat.
Radhana dice, vi un
I don't know if
comentario
Ganga
en el
Shakti
chat.
had a previous question
No sé
from the
si
call.
Ganga
I haven't
Shakti
asked her.
tenía
I
una
just saw
pregunta en
Sharada
el Swami
writing
Sang,
that.
en el Swami Call precedente. Solo vi un comentario de una persona
Yeah.
que pregunta si ella tuvo
Okay,
ocasión
I'm not
de
hearing anything
preguntar.
from her. Yeah, does
Pero
anyone
no,
have a question?
parece que nadie tiene más preguntas.
Amrita Gopal here has a question.
Amrita Gopala
If
tiene una
possible. It is
pregunta.
possible. Amrita Gopal. Kijai.
Gurma dice, sí es posible. Amrita Gopal Kijai.
Amrita Gopal. Where are you from? I don't think we've met.
No
Nice to
creo
meet you.
que nos encontramos,
We
¿verdad?
met a few times here.
Sí, nos
Oh, there you are.
encontramos.
Yes, now I
Yeah.
understand.
Ah, ahí te veo, sí, sí,
I just want to
estás.
say I'm so appreciative of
Yo
your
solo
very
quiero
wonderful
decir
answer. You,
que fue una
I did have a
respuesta
question.
muy
It was
bonita,
totally unrelated
maravillosa,
to
y
the
tengo una pregunta
spiritual
que no tiene nada que ver,
aspect that you gleaned from the last question.
pero
But I just want to say thank you.
solo quería
Unfortunately,
decir
I'm in a very
gracias.
embarrassing situation
Estoy en
where
una
I'm
situación
completely
muy
drowning in material existence.
avergonzosa y
And
estoy
my
ahogándome
question
en la
actually
existencia
was,
material. Y mi
how can
pregunta
I
es,
overcome the fear
¿cómo
that I
puedo
feel when I'm
ganar
around
el miedo
materialistic people?
que
That's
tengo
what I'd
cuando
like
estoy
to
alrededor de
concentrate on. If
personas
you could provide
materialistas?
some insight into that.
Si me pudiera
No,
contestar
thank
algo
you.
sobre eso.
My heart goes out to you. So your
Gracias,
reaction
mi
to
corazón
answer to my question
va
in
hacia
with
ti
regard to your
y tu reacción a
the
mi
way you
respuesta y
depicted
también en
your own
relación a cómo
situation. I don't think
describiste tu
you're as bad
propia
off as you think.
situación.
Drowning
No
in
creo
material
que tu
existence.
situación
Well,
es
that's
tan
a good
mala como
way
piensas,
for the disciple to think. And
ahogándote en el mundo
relatively
material.
speaking, I
Es una
think
manera
that
buena de
it's
verse a uno
accurate, but
mismo,
you have
pero
guru,
tienes a un
Vaishnava,
guru, tiene
who care
Vaishnavas
about you.
que
And
te
that's
cuidan
what's
y
important.
te quieren, y eso es
They care
importante.
about us.
Ellos
then our life is
nos
successful.
quieren. Uy, se puso a
We
llorar.
should, yes, go ahead, yeah.
Bueno, desahógate.
We should be concerned, and this should be our concern in
Debería
general,
ser
that
nuestra preocupación,
a-
nuestro enfoque, que un
a
Vaishnava,
guru,
que un guru,
that what we do, how we think, that
que lo que
that
hacemos,
they will that someone of spiritual consequence cares about us.
que,
That
que-
should
que
be our
alguien que
concern.
importe a nivel espiritual
And
nos
if
quiera.
we have that
Es muy importante.
confidence,
Si tenemos esta
which in your
confianza,
case you should,
que
all
en
of
tu
us in
caso
the Sangha
deberías,
should,
y todos ustedes en el Sangha,
uh, then we should feel that we are like
entonces
Charan,
deberíamos
fearless
sentirnos Abhay Charana,
at the feet of
sin
Krishna.
miedo
In
a los
connection with
pies de
us, with
Krishna.
the Vaishnava, with the Guru who cares about us. Krishna cares about us.
Si el Guru
Out of
nos
millions of
quiere,
jivas, he cares
Krishna
about them
nos
all, but
quiere.
now
Entre
in a
millones de
particular way,
jivas,
because someone who
Él
loves
quiere a
him
todas, pero a
has
nosotros de forma
demonstrated that
particular,
over,
porque nos envió el
long period
Guru
of time.
y nos lo demostró muchas
Has
veces.
spoken for that person. Well, Krishna has to take notice that's love psychology. If you love
El
someone,
Guru
and they
habló,
say, I love this person
intercedió
too,
para nosotros. Entonces
and
el
they're naturally
Krishna
going to be
tiene que
disposed
reconocer,
towards them.
esta
So
es la
that
psicología del amor.
puts us
Si el Guru
we're a marked
nos ve
person,
como
then
personas
we're on
importantes,
Krishna's
si
list, so to
importamos en
speak.
los ojos del Guru, Krishna también tiene que darnos
That's
su
not going to
atención.
be erased.
Y
Even
esto
if we
nunca se
try
va
to erase it,
a cancelar, ni siquiera
well,
si
it's
tratamos
indelible, so we will
de
maybe
borrarlo,
cover it
es
over, but it'll come
indeleble.
back.
Se puede
Of course.
cubrir, pero
So
todo va
you're
a
in a good
volver
position.
al nivel que estaba. Entonces
And,
estás en una posición muy
we
buena.
all have difficulty with our daily
Todos
practice,
tenemos
so it's
dificultades
not an easy thing.
con nuestra
There
práctica
are all types of
diaria.
obstacles,
No es fácil, hay cada tipo de
obstacles
obstáculos.
from our past that have not yet
Obstáculos de
been
nuestro
dealt with
pasado,
sufficiently, remnants
que
of
no-
prarabdha karma and so forth.
son
And then there's
residuos
the
de nuestro
world.
prarabdha karma, y luego
We
hay el
don't
mundo
live in West Bengal,
alrededor. No vivimos en Bengala
200 years ago or 100 years
de hace
ago.
200 años.
You're in, Brighton or London or
Estás en Brighton,
you know,
en Londres, donde sea.
Warsaw, wherever it is, San Francisco,
O Varsavia, San
Buenos
Francisco,
Aires, and it's-
Buenos Aires.
and people think differently.
La gente
Materialistic
piensa de
people
forma
are
diferente. Los
moving like
materialistas
robotically for the most part.
se mueven más que nada
And now your
como
question is, well, how can I overcome the fear of
como
materialistic people?
robot,
Well, one way
de
in which I
forma
would respond to
automática a
that,
través de la vida
it was
material.
the only
Entonces,
fear of
tu pregunta es,
Prahlad
¿cómo puedo
Maharaj,
ganar el miedo que le
associated
tengo a
with
los
people who weren't
materialistas?
devotees. So it's a
Y
healthy fear.
Prahlad es el único miedo
In
que
a
tenía
sense, it's a
Prahlad
healthy
Maharaj.
fear.
Es
But
un
if we
miedo sano, saludable.
reflect,
Pero si
on what I said
reflexionamos,
earlier,
como dije
that our
antes,
position is,
en nuestra posición,
regardless of our standing in the ladder of bhakti and its
a pesar de
progress
donde
from
es que
Shraddha to
estemos
Prem,
en la escalera del
we
del
have
Bhakti,
standing,
de
period.
Shraddha hacia Prema,
We have a sadhaka
si
deha.
tenemos,
We've been given a
sea cual sea
practitioner's body
posición
by our
en la escalera
guru,
del Bhakti, si
and
tenemos
it's not
fe
entirely
y tenemos una
perfected.
relación con nuestro
Sometimes
Guru,
it's used
por muy
materially,
imperfecta que
sometimes
sea,
it's used spiritually, but the sadhaka is different
pero un
than a Baddha
sadhaka
jiva,
es
than
diferente que un
an
Baddha
eternally
Jiva,
conditioned jiva, different
de
than a mukta.
un jiva
also.
eternamente
But
condicionado
it's
y
a
diferente
very
de un mukta.
glorious position,
Es una posición
to
muy
be in,
gloriosa
and so
en la
we should
que
have confidence
estar.
in that.
Y
Confidence
deberíamos tener
that our
confianza
gurus care about
que
us,
nuestro Guru
and
nos
the other
quiere
Vaishnavas,
y los
and so
otros
forth.
Vaishnavas
And
también.
so, with a healthy fear
Entonces, con
of
este miedo saludable
materialistic people, that
de los materialistas, a
we
los
shouldn't become
materialistas,
neurotic about it,
no deberíamos
but based
convertirnos
on
en
understanding of
neuróticos,
the strength that
pero
we have
basándonos
in
en el
terms of our
entendimiento
connection.
que tenemos en
We should
relación
have
a la
confidence in that.
conexión que
We don't need to
tenemos
have
con
confidence
el
in
Guru.
ourselves.
No tenemos que
We
tener
shouldn't.
confianza
We're weak.
en
But
nosotros,
Krishna is
ni deberíamos
strong,
porque somos
and
débiles.
Krishna is
Pero
kind,
Krishna es fuerte y
generous,
amable y
merciful.
generoso y misericordioso.
So we should have confidence in that.
Deberíamos tener confianza en Krishna.
Ashabandha, hope beyond hope. I have no hope in myself,
Ashabandha quiere
but I have
decir,
hope nonetheless.
no tengo
Because Krishna is
esperanza,
the way
pero
he
sí tengo
is.
esperanza porque
I've heard about that.
Krishna es de la forma que es. Escuché
I've
todo
seen
sobre
it
Krishna, lo vi
in the lives of others.
en la
So,
vida de los otros.
therefore, I should be able to interact with
Entonces
people
debería poder
in a way
interactuar
that-
con la
that
gente de una
while
forma
having healthy concern about
aún
not being
teniendo
drawn in,
miedo
by
a
their
que la vida material me vuelve a chupar hacia sí
conceptions, habits, and so forth.
y así las
I
concepciones y
should
los hábitos de los
feel strong
materialistas.
enough to
Debería
interact with them in
sentirme
ways
fuerte
that
lo
are
suficiente como
necessary
para
for my
interactuar con
particular
ellos
lifestyle,
de la forma
and
que
in
es
ways
necesaria
that,
para
to
mantenerme
some
en la
extent,
vida, mi estilo de vida,
will set an example that I can
Y
become a
en
positive
cuanto sea posible,
in their
darle
lives rather
ejemplo
than they
a
becoming a
ellos,
negative in my life.
en vez que permitir
And
que ellos
again,
se
I think
conviertan
that
en ejemplos malos
despite
para mí,
our
darle yo el buen ejemplo en cuanto
shortcomings
sea
as a
posible.
practitioner, which are glaring at times, we have to reflect on
Volviendo a hablar de las fallas que puede hacer
patience,
un practicante,
compassion
un sadhana,
of our
tenemos que
gurus, the nature
reflexionar
of Krishna, the
en la
stories of
paciencia y la
Krishna's
compasión de nuestro guru
kindness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's
y la
kindness. This is what we're
generosidad
connected
que
with.
nos extendió Krishna y
Be
Chaitanya
kind with one
Mahaprabhu
another, be
especialmente.
generous with one
Tenemos que
another,
ser
be generous with me too.
buenos
I need
uno con el
your
otro
generosity.
y
I have many
ustedes
faults,
hacia mí también,
many
porque
shortcomings.
yo ocupo toda su generosidad porque estoy lleno de
This is
fallas
a
y
way, I think,
defectos.
to think about the issue that
Entonces,
you raised. I hope that
esta
helps.
es la manera que yo te sugeriría que
Yeah, okay.
te
Haribol.
comportaras.
Who else is there
Jai
in the
Haribol.
Brighton setting?
¿Quién más tiene? Ya, se encuentra ya en Brighton. Amrita Gopal, Sri Radha,
Oh,
Master Rob
and Madan Mohan.
y Madan
Small Sangha today,
Mohan.
smaller than last week.
Hoy es un grupo pequeño.
okay. Small is beautiful.
Bueno, pequeño es bueno.
Okay, so let's see. We don't have any other questions
Parece que no
on
tenemos
the
más preguntas, ¿verdad?
in the chat,
En el chat.
but if anyone has one.
Guru Maharaj pranams, it's Omkar.
Omkar dice Guru Maharaj
Okay,
Pranam.
there he is. Okay.
Omkar, ahí
Can you hear
está.
me? Sorry
¿Me
about the
escuchas?
bad
Sí.
light. Maybe you can't see properly.
Siento por la
I can see
luz
you.
mala. No te veo.
I see you in a
Yeah.
brighter light than you are standing in.
Le dijo, te veo en una luz
I
más
kind of would like to
fuerte de la que te ves
segue
tú.
with a little bit of a comment and a question also. I've been wondering about
Dice, yo también tengo una-
associating with people not directly, out of the
Yo
Prakriti
también me
realm,
pregunté sobre
more
asociarme,
materialistic people.
la asociación con los materialistas.
Somebody was saying that
Y alguien
I shouldn't associate with tamasic
me
people
dijo que
in
no
general.
debería asociarme
And
con gente
me and Sham
tamásica.
Sundar were talking about
Y
yesterday.
Shamasundar y yo
And I was
estábamos
wondering,
hablando el otro día.
he asked me, what is tamasic person anyway? And I couldn't even produce
Y
an
él me
answer to him.
preguntó,
So I
¿pero
don't really
quién es
know
una
what
persona tamásica
a
al fin y al
tamasic
cabo?
person would even
Y yo no sé
be.
bien, no,
I mean,
no
somebody, my
sabía
dad's pretty
contestar.
tamasic and he
Por
wants
ejemplo,
to
mi
hang out
padre
with
es
me and
bastante
talking about eating steak. So
tamásico y
I don't know, it's just, it sounds
se
rough.
la pasa hablando conmigo
But
de
he's, at
comer
the same time, he's my
bistec,
dad.
pero al mismo tiempo es mi padre.
So I'm thinking,
Well, I think that there are symptoms of
Gumaraj
those
dice,
who are influenced by
bueno, hay
Tamaguna,
síntomas
Rajaguna, and
de los que están
Sattva given in the
influenciados por
Gita,
Tamaguna,
Bhagavad Gita.
Rajoguna y
And I
Sattva-guna,
believe you'll find the
así
same thing in the
como
Uddhava
los
Gita, where
describe
Krishna
en
speaks to
Bhagavad
Uddhava
Gita. Y en el
in a very similar
Uddhava
way
Gita
that
también,
he spoke to Arjuna.
Krishna le habla de
Difference
forma
being
muy
that Uddhava
parecida a
was a
Uddhava
Brahmin
como le dijo
and
a Arjuna.
by caste,
Uddhava
and
era un
Arjuna was a
brahmana
warrior, so the
y
setting
Arjuna
is
era
different,
un guerrero,
and so
entonces el
forth. But
contexto era diferente,
you
etc.
can
Pero
look there for those
puedes
symptoms,
fijarte en
and
estos síntomas
to the extent that they are predominant in a
y de la
person,
forma
they
que
could be
estos
labeled
síntomas
in terms of
sobresalen,
their material condition as
puede ser una
tamasic,
indicación
rajic,
de la condición material de cada uno, ya sea
in nature.
sátrica, rajásica o
I
tamásica.
mean, most people in the world are
La
driven by
mayoría
Rajaguna and Tamaguna.
de la gente en el
That's
mundo está guiada por
what
Rajoguna y
makes the world go
Tamoguna.
round.
Esto es lo que hace que el mundo
Sattva-guna starts to
revuelva.
slow the world down
Sattva es
and move
todo
in the opposite direction.
ralentizar
Because with
el
sattva,
mundo para que vaya
the
hacia
symptom
la
of sattva, of
dirección
course, is
opuesta.
knowledge.
Porque el
And
síntoma de
the
sattva es
fullest measure
conocimiento.
of that knowledge is
Y la medida de ese
knowing the difference
conocimiento
between
es saber la
consciousness and
diferencia
matter,
entre
even
conciencia y
experientially.
materia, a nivel de
So to speak,
experiencia,
theoretically.
ni hablar
And
en
happiness
teoría.
also is a
Y la
characteristic
felicidad también es
of
una característica
sattva,
del
a kind
sattva.
of inner happiness
Esta dicha
that is
interior
not based on the ups and
que no está
downs
basada
of everyday life, the gains and
los
losses
excesos,
and
los
so forth.
extremos de la vida
So,
material.
there's few people that are
Entonces hay
sattvic
muy
in
poca,
nature.
muy
The
poca
world is
gente
driven
que
by
es
rajas and
sátrica
tamas.
por su naturaleza.
Sattva will
El
start to
mundo
bring an end to
está
it,
conducido por
moving in the
gente que es
opposite
tamásica y
direction.
rajásica.
So to associate with ordinary people,
Entonces,
well, you're going to associate with rajasic
asociarse
and tamasic
con
people.
gente
Probably
ordinaria
someone who
quiere decir
told you
asociarse
that
con gente tamásica.
was talking about,
A lo
I can
mejor
just,
el que te
make
dijo
a
que no te
conjecture.
asociaras con gente
People who take
tamásica,
drugs
me imagino,
and,
se refería a
are,
gente que toma drogas,
tamasic in that respect,
tamásica en
in
ese
extreme.
sentido.
I don't know about yourself, but a lot of devotees come from a
No sé
background of
tú en particular,
myself
pero
included,
muchos devotos,
experience,
yo incluido,
experiments with
venimos
in the
de
counterculture in
pasados
my youth with
de la contracultura
different
en mi juventud,
substances and so on and
que
so forth.
tuvo mucho acceso a
So,
sustancias, etcétera.
you know, maybe someone who talked to you about Tamasic people was,
Entonces,
you know,
a lo
thinking
mejor
along
el que
that,
te
knowing that
habló
you
de la
yourself
gente
may have those
tamásica
influences
te está hablando de esas cosas, sabiendo que había gente que te estaba
you know,
influenciando de esa forma.
the leaning towards intoxication is pretty strong. Most people drink.
Mucha gente tiene esta
Even
atracción
in
para
the higher so-called circles of
intoxicación.
society. So anyway,
Mucha gente
I don't know
toma sin
what
ni siquiera
exactly they're
pensar en
referring to.
ello.
You give the example of your father. You know,
Me diste el
okay,
ejemplo
well,
de tu
you know, you
padre.
should,
Bueno,
relatively speaking, you should love your father
relativamente
and your mother. You should obey your father and
hablando,
mother.
debes
Relatively
amar
speaking,
a tu
right?
padre
So
y
you
tu
have to
madre,
look at that
relativamente hablando. Y
in light of the
puedes verlo
absolute and
a la luz de eso, pero también a la luz del absoluto.
and you know, the fact that your father eats meat, well, it's a given. You guys just have to tell him, look, I don't
Bueno,
eat meat,
tu
so
padre
better, you know,
come
don't bring that up with me,
carne,
you know. And I don't want to get
pues
into an argument with your
claro
dad
que solo
about
le
it
vas
or
a
anything like
decir,
that. You have your
por
habits,
favor
I
no
have
hables de
mine, and
carne
this is just one where we don't agree on.
alrededor de mí, es algo
Let's
sobre
do something else. You know, let's talk about
sobre
something
que no
else.
estamos de acuerdo.
It's
Hablemos de
good to
otra
have a good
cosa.
relationship with your parents. I think
Pero es
that would
bueno
be
tener
good
una
for
buena
them
relación con los
if they
padres de
can come
uno.
to
Es
appreciate
bueno para ellos
you
que acaben
in
apreciándote
despite the fact
a pesar de las
that you are conducting yourself in a way that doesn't correspond with what they think
de que te
is
portes de forma
productive,
diferente a la que
valuable,
piensan que ellos
makes
piensan que
sense,
es
and so forth.
productiva y
I think that if you
valiosa.
can have a relationship with people like that,
Si puedes tener una
in
relación
such a
con la
way
gente de esa
over
forma,
time
que
that
en el
you know,
transcurso del
they just
tiempo
appreciate you,
acaban
then
apreciándote,
you know, then they can, in a kind of related sense,
luego
appreciate what you're
es
doing.
más fácil que te aprecien y lo que haces tú.
It takes time. Parents love
Pero
their
toma
kids
mucho tiempo.
usually,
Los padres,
for
por
the
lo
most part.
regular,
And
quieren a
so
sus
the fact
hijos.
that their kids do something
Entonces, cuando
or
un
take up a
hijo hace
lifestyle
algo,
that is
tiene un
not
estilo de
one that
vida
they
que
would
no es
choose
el
or
que
they
el
don't
padre,
understand, they
los
don't think it's
padres
right,
habían escogido
it doesn't
para
have
él
to
o
be
ella y que no
a
entienden,
cause of
no tiene por qué ser causa de
distancing themselves entirely from one another.
que
So I think there's a way to
causa para
bridge
que
that
se
gap,
forme una
keep
distancia
a
entre
relationship,
ellos,
and
con ellos, entre el hijo y los padres.
emphasize the things that you know
Más bien sería,
are important
mejor
to them.
sería
I'm your son. You know, I
subrayar
know I'm different. I'm your son, but I love you.
las
You know,
cosas que son
and I'm here,
importantes
you
para
know,
los padres, decirles,
whatever,
sé que soy tu hijo
just
y
to
que
be
me
with you because you're
quieren,
my dad. You know,
pero
and
yo quiero estar contigo solo porque eres mi
you
padre
know, I don't know.
y
I
no
didn't have the
por
chance to do this with my
debido
father, but this is what I would do.
debido a lo
I
que
remember the
comes.
things that we
Yo
did
mismo no
when
tuve la
we were
ocasión de hacer esto con mi
young,
padre, pero es lo
when
que
I was
hubiera
younger,
hecho.
and the things that that he did do that endear me to him, and I would not bring up the things that he did that didn't endear me to him. And then he said, "Well, my son, yeah, he's a Hare Krishna, but whatever. I guess they aren't that
Tuvimos
bad.
muchas diferencias
It's
y
okay.
al
That
final
becomes not that
yo me
bad of a
enfoqué en los
thing.
lados
I
positivos.
know
Al
from my
final mi
own
padre
father,
acabó pensando, bueno,
we
es un
were
Hare Krishna, pero
alienated, but
tan malo
and
no
he
es
didn't
este
like the
hijo.
idea that I became a Hare Krishna.
A él no le gustaba que yo me
He
hubiese
disowned me,
convertido
wrote me out of the
en un Hare
will
Krishna,
on
me
account of
excluyó de
that.
su,
Not against me, but he wouldn't give any money to the Hare Krishnas. That was
¿cómo
for
se
sure.
llama? Lo que escribe uno
So,
antes de
but
morir.
he
No
used
porque no me
to,
quisiera, pero
in
no
his
quería
business
darle dinero a
travel,
los Hare Krishnas.
and he would meet devotees in airports selling
Y él era
books.
un hombre
And they would sell
de
him books. Said, "Oh,
comercio y
my son's in
en los
Prabhupada."
aeropuertos encontraba a los
And then it
devotos
would come out. It was Tripurari, and then they would go like, oh, they'd like pay their
y él
obeisances
decía,
to my father or
testamento ese.
something, 'cause
Entonces,
he's
cuando
famous.
él
Oh my
decía,
God,
mi hijo se llama
look
Tripurari,
at his
veía la
father,
reacción de los devotos
And
que
so,
decían, ay, Tripurari, como si
and so my
hubiese
father
nombrado un
liked that,
santo. Entonces mi
I
padre
heard
quedaba
later from
como
my mother,
orgulloso
he said,
y
well,
mi
he's,
madre,
he's successful in his field.
o sea,
He's
que se quedó
become
como, al fin y al cabo, mi
successful.
padre,
And then
mi
I
hijo
had
está
one
teniendo
conversation
éxito
with
en la
him before
vida.
he passed away over the
Y
phone,
tuvimos una
and,
conversación, yo y él, antes que
and
que
my mother
falleciera.
told me this after he said, he's all my sons, he can really articulate himself
Y
very
él dijo,
well.
entre
And
todos
so
mis
there
hijos,
were some
él
redeeming
es el que
things, I guess, that he
que puede
found in me
articular sus
despite my
pensamientos más que los otros. O sea, que
religious
había unas
spiritual
cualidades
persuasion
de las mías que él podía apreciar a
And
pesar de mi
so,
persuasión
there's a
religiosa.
way to navigate the
Entonces,
course.
hay una
I
manera
wouldn't take the statement from some devotees, don't associate with Tamasic people,
de navegar
to
todo
an
eso. O
extreme
sea,
like
bueno,
that.
un devoto te dice, no te asocies con la gente tamásica.
There's things to learn from ordinary
Pero
people.
se
We live
puede
sometimes in a
aprender
bit of a
mucho
bubble,
de la gente
thinking we
ordinaria.
know everything and everybody's in Maya,
Normalmente,
but we're
muchas
Maya
veces
too.
vivimos en una
And
burbuja pensando que lo
there's
sabemos
things
todo
we
y
can
que
learn from
los
ordinary
demás están
people.
en Maya,
We
pero
can learn from
nosotros también
everybody,
estamos en Maya y
even
podemos
from the
aprender
inanimate
mucho
world. There's
de la gente, ni hablar de la gente, de las
um,
cosas
things to
inanimadas,
learn if we want to learn.
si
So
las queremos aprender.
hope that helps.
Espero que te ayudó.
Yeah, thank you.
Sí,
That's very
gracias.
nice, as usual.
Muy bonito
Hare
como
Krishna.
siempre. Hare Krishna.
You're
Hare
nice.
Krishna.
You're nice too. Yeah.
Tú también
Okay,
eres
so
muy, muy bueno.
well, we're just got a few minutes, but
Bueno, tenemos unos minutos
the audience is not full of questions. So
y el público no
John
está
had a
lleno de
question if there was
preguntas.
time. He messaged me.
Arjan Das, yes, Arjan.
Sajan tiene una pregunta
Dandavats Maharaj.
por si hubiera tiempo.
And
Sí,
thank you
Sajan.
for
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you said Arjan. Yes.
Thank you. That was a wonderful, wonderful last answer you gave.
Tu última
My particular
respuesta fue muy
question
bonita. Mi pregunta en
was,
particular es,
you know, in the Bhagavad Gita, at the
en el
very
Bhagavad
beginning,
Gita, en
the
el
very beginning
principio,
of Krishna's
Krishna
teachings to
le dice a
Arjuna,
Arjuna que
he says, "Na jayate mriyate
Na
va
jayate mriyate.
kadachin." There is no birth
no hay
for the true self,
nacimiento
for
para
true
el verdadero
nature,
ser.
like that. And at the same time,
Al mismo
we very
tiempo,
naturally and spontaneously
naturalmente y
speak
espontáneamente
about rebirth
hablamos de
to the extent of even, you mentioned, I think
reencarnación,
it was last week
al
or a
punto que
couple
la
of weeks
semana
ago, you
pasada
said
dijiste que
one takes birth in the Prakat Lila
uno vuelve a
before,
nacer en el Prakata
before
Lila
going to the Aprakat
antes de entrar en el Aprakata Lila,
dimension.
en la
So
dimensión
how would
Aprakata.
we kind of
Entonces,
harmonize
¿cómo vamos a
those two
armonizar estos
principles?
dos principios?
Well, yeah, I think that the Gita is talking about the
Bueno, sí,
fact
el Gita está
that
hablando
the Atma has no
del
birth.
hecho que el Atma no tiene nacimiento, no
It
nace,
has no beginning.
Right.
no tiene principio.
The body is taking birth.
El
The
cuerpo
Atma
es el que
is
nace.
along for the ride.
El
But it's not
alma
taking birth.
está
At the beginning of
viajando
the
en
Atma,
el cuerpo,
and death
pero
is not the end
ella
of
no
the
nace.
Atma. So that's really what the Gita is
Eso es lo que está diciendo el
emphasizing.
Gita.
The
Está
biological
subrayando el
reality
Gita.
of birth
La
is
realidad
independent,
biológica del nacimiento es
in one sense,
independiente de una
of
forma
the Atma, although
de lo que es
it
el Atma,
corresponds
aunque
with the Atma's
corresponda
extension of consciousness, material absorption, and so on and so forth. So, it's
según
just a basic
el
distinguishing
nivel de
there in the Gita
conciencia,
between the
absorción material. El
consciousness
cuerpo
and
corresponde
matter,
al
if you
nivel
will.
en
Of
que
course,
esté
taking
el
birth in
alma.
the Prakat Lila,
Por lo que se refiere a
that,
nacer en el Prakata Lila,
there is a birth to bhakti, sadhusanga.
bueno, existe un nacimiento del Bhakti en Sadhusanga.
Gives rise to bhakti within us. So,
Sadhusanga ocasiona este nacimiento
but
del
taking birth
Bhakti
in
en
the Prakat
nosotros.
Lila, that's a good idea.
Nacer en el Prakata Lila
That's
a
another
mí me
thing. I
parece una
think
buena
that
idea.
we say that bhakti has the power to change, prarabdha karma.
Se dice que el
Manifest
Bhakti
karma,
tiene
whereas
el
knowledge,
poder
transcendental knowledge,
de
in comparison does not.
destruir el prarabdha karma, el karma que ya está manifiesto como nuestro propio cuerpo.
I say transcendental knowledge, but it's sattva-guna. And one of the examples of that I give is that, well, you have a certain father or mother, that's not going to change. That's your prarabdha karma. How
El
are you going to
cuerpo de
change
uno
that?
o los padres de uno. ¿Cómo se va a cambiar los padres que
How
tiene
can
uno
bhakti
ya?
change that?
¿Cómo puede el Bhakti cambiar los padres que
You say that bhakti
uno
can change
tenga? Pero
Because in
se dijo
bhakti,
que el
we'll
Bhakti
give you another father and another
puede
mother.
cambiarlo. Sí, porque en el Bhava
In
Bhakti
Prakat Lila.
vamos a lograr un
Bhava
cuerpo
Bhakti,
al
internally,
que corresponde
one will
otra madre
meditate
y
on
otro
and
padre
cultivate and so
en el
forth,
lila.
such
Y
that it results in
conforme
taking
vamos
birth
a
in the
cultivar
Prakat Lila.
esta
Then
identidad,
you have another Gopa father,
luego
Gopi
vamos
mother,
a nacer en el Gopa Lila y vamos a
and so on
tener
and
un
so
padre
forth. So
Gopa,
your
una madre
prarabdha karma
Gopi,
has changed
y
in terms of
nuestro
who your father and
prarabdha
mother is,
karma.
if you will. In
Y
Bhava
nuestra
Bhakti, by the
meditación,
power, the
aún
force
estando en este
of
cuerpo,
bhakti. But this is a
se
little
ha
getting
cambiado.
away from your question. It's an
Pero
interesting
esto se está alejando de tu pregunta.
topic, but again, the Atma is only realizing, as Baladev says, Baladev Bhushan, its own inherent
Pero el Atma
bliss in
lo que está
conjunction with the
haciendo
blessing
es realizar su propia dicha, como
bestowed
dice
on it.
Baladeva
So
Vidyabhushana.
there's no origin to it.
Entonces
It's
no hay
the
origen.
mother and father, the Swarup is eternal, like
El
the
Swarupa
Atma
es
is
eterno,
eternal.
así como el Atma es
So,
eterno. La madre y
I
el
get.
padre que alguien tenga
I
en el
guess I could
lila.
rephrase
A lo
slightly
mejor
and
voy a
ask
tener que cambiar las
if there's
palabras de mi
no
pregunta y
birth for the
preguntar
true
que
self,
si no hay
that which is
nacimiento
actually
para el verdadero ser,
alive and can experience anything at all, then what is it exactly which takes
¿qué es
birth
lo que
in
nace
Prakat Lila,
en el
let's say?
well,
Prakatalila?
look at it like this. There's no
Vamos
material
a verlo
birth.
así.
There's
No
a
hay
spiritual
nacimiento
birth.
material. Es un nacimiento espiritual, pero,
Okay.
o sea, cuando uno toma un
Born
cuerpo
into the Leela,
en
Seva,
el
it's a
lila
different thing
de
altogether.
Krishna, cuando está en la
And
tierra,
that,
es un cuerpo
again,
material, pero es un nacimiento espiritual.
that form is eternal. So
Sajjan,
it doesn't have a
Sajjan
beginning either.
quedó confundido.
Hard view. You prosper. So try to go there, right?
Y Gumars dijo,
Okay.
bueno, intenta primero ir allá,
Thank you.
llegar
I
allá
see
tú
we have a
mismo, luego
couple
lo
of
vas a ver.
questions in
Veo que hay más preguntas en
Spanish.
español.
Reverencias Maharaj, quisiera preguntar, okay, ¿cómo lidiar
Lidiar.
con las expectativas y better ask Sham for a translation when I came.
Yes, I'm here. I'm right here for that. Okay, so he says, how, I gotta admit, I don't know what lidiar means, but how do we deal with the expectations and pressure that can our family, the pressure of the expectations that our families have in terms of what we should achieve in life. And in particular, well, I think it means, especially if you understand these things, this material. Okay, so he says, especially if you understand that these material goals, like I don't know, getting a university degree, is part of your temporal dharma. And he says maybe you can give some ideas for now if there is time, or maybe next week. Many thanks and obeisances again. So yeah.
Well, I mean, you're asking a question that I can understand.
La pregunta es cómo lidiar con las expectativas y presión que ejercen las expectativas de logros que tienen los familiares, en especial si entiendes estas como parte de tu dharma temporal. Guru Maharaj dijo, cuando yo me convertí en un devoto no había ninguna expectativa de parte de mi padre. Para él era un desastre total. Lo que él tenía planteado para mí era un desastre para mí. Yo me hice devoto y el asunto estaba. Mi hermano se convirtió. Él se convirtió en un pescador en Alaska, se fue a Alaska a pescar. Y para mi padre también, igual. Que igual que uno se hiciera devoto o pescador, no era lo que quería el padre. Y esto sucede todo el rato. Tal vez no en algunos países de Latinoamérica o Europa del Este o en Asia. Pero en naciones más industrializadas o más modernas, más tecnológicas, desarrolladas, con más dinero, más opciones, como conforme la cultura se hace, la sociedad se hace más rica a nivel material,
pursued and presented as the goal is to have more and more opportunities,
Lo que se presenta
more and more
como,
freedoms,
como
choice,
meta
and
es
opportunities,
de tener
and so
aún
forth.
más
So when that
opciones y
happens, well,
oportunidades.
then
Y
the
cuando la
idea, the
oportunidad
more
se
traditional
presenta,
idea,
la, la idea
the
más
traditional idea was
tradicional,
you'd have children
que
to
es la
help
idea
you run the
tradicional,
farm.
era de tener hijos
You
para
need some
ayudarte
hands,
a manejar la
so,
granja, la finca, para que te ayuden así.
let's try for a daughter this time, because
Ahora
we need
vamos
to train her to,
a tratar
another cook on the,
de
on
tener
the
una
team
hija
here.
porque tenemos más,
Hope for a boy this
ocupamos
time,
más
because
cocineros.
I
Ahora
need someone
esperemos
to
que
help
nos
me with the
llegue
cattle.
un hijo para que
This
nos
was,
ayude con las vacas.
Typical.
Esto era lo
And so the
típico.
family unit was very much
Entonces el
united,
núcleo
stayed
familiar
together. The
era
expectations of the parents were fulfilled,
había mucha
and
cohesión.
it would be very much of an exception for
Y
a son or a daughter to
lo
go
que era una
in some other
excepción era
direction. Or,
que un hijo o una hija
later as
fuera a otra
society
dirección.
developed and moved away from the
Seguidamente la
agrarian-based society,
sociedad
there
se
would be,
alejó de
we need a
de
doctor.
lo agrícola, entonces
We
el
need a
hijo
lawyer.
debía
Okay.
hacerse
So you can
doctor,
find Indian
abogado.
families like that. They want the son to become a
Como
doctor.
cada familia en la
Because they
India,
want
el hijo
free
solo
medical
puede
treatment in their
hacerse
old age. They
doctor,
want the son to be a
abogado,
doctor,
porque ellos quieren
and that's the payment. We brought you into this
medicina
world. We
gratis.
raised
Este
you
es
up.
es
This is the
el pago.
payoff.
Nosotros te
So
llevamos a la
there's like a
luz
working
y tú te tienes
relationship
que
here.
ocupar de
Or we want
nosotros
a
siendo
lawyer,
doctor, o
maybe a
ocupar
judge,
un abogado, un juez,
politician. Let's
un
try for this.
político.
So this would be part of the calculation. This one will be a lawyer.
Eso es
This won't
parte
be a doctor.
de los cálculos
This will be
de
something
los
else.
padres.
And
Este
so,
hijo va a hacerse
but
abogado,
with
este
the
hijo va a hacerse
development of the
ingeniero.
industrial society,
Pero con el
we
desarrollo
move away from this
de la
more and
sociedad
more,
industrializada, se
And so
alejaron
it's not
los
uncommon
hijos también
that
de
children
este
disappoint their
parámetro.
parents
Y
on
se ha,
some level.
se
Now
ha
then you get the parents who are
estado,
just like, well, if it makes you
ha estado
happy,
siendo más y más
good.
común que
That's
un
kind of like,
hijo
okay, well, that
decepcione
works in the modern
a los
society.
padres.
But, then again, to become a devotee may be too extreme
Al
for
mismo
them
tiempo,
to
hacerse
say, well, if it
devoto
makes you
puede
happy.
ser demasiado extremo
Okay.
para cualquier padre.
And how
Son
to deal with
pocos
those
los padres que
pressures.
dicen, bueno, si
you
te hace
have to
feliz.
stay the course, and you have to be patient. And you have to think how your guru is being patient with you. You have to be patient.
Pero bueno, la respuesta
with
es que
your
sigas
parents.
navegando,
As you grow older,
quédate
your
paciente,
parents
así como
become
tu
your
gurú
children.
es paciente
That's just a
para
fact.
contigo, y conforme
You're the
vayas
children,
creciendo,
you
tus
become-
padres
then you become
se van a
friends.
convertir en tus hijos, en niños.
From
Y
parental
en el
relationship, you're the
medio
children, they're the
vas a ser
parents, then it becomes
el amigo
friends,
de ellos.
then you become the parents, and
Empiezas
you
como
become the children.
dependiente de los
Now,
padres, luego
I'm
son
becoming a
iguales,
child.
y luego tus
I'm
padres se
becoming a
convierten en
child.
tus niños.
You are supposed to become my parents and take care of me, despite my bad qualities.
Y
You have
luego
to
los
have
padres
patience
cuando
with
se
me.
hacen viejos dicen,
If I
ahora
have
soy
that
yo el
patience
niño
with
y
you,
tienes
so
que
on.
cuidarme
I'm not
a
sure
pesar
how,
de mis fallas
who asked the
y de
question
mí,
there,
de la
how
manera
old,
en que yo te estoy
you are.
decepcionando a
It
ti.
may be a little premature for you to be looking at that way.
Entonces,
A lot of your parents
¿quién
are
preguntó
maybe
esta
relating with you
pregunta?
like that, but
Wendy
I'm just speaking
Alvarado, a lo
in
mejor
general.
es
So have
es
patience,
una
stay the
respuesta
course
muy
of bhakti,
prematura,
and
pero en general esto es,
as I was saying to Omkar,
como le estaba
try to
diciendo a
like
Omkar,
put out of their picture a little bit, the fact that your
trata de
lifestyle,
excluir
your values are different than theirs.
las cosas que
There are other
que no tienen
things
en común
that you
con sus
agree with on
padres.
them that you can
Y
come together
enfócate
on,
en los que
emphasize
sí tienen en
those
común,
things.
sí tienes en común.
And,
Y
and just the fact that you're their children,
ya
want
solo
to
el hecho
displease
que eres
them,
su
but,
hijo, no los no quieres
you have
darle un
convictions,
displacer,
and,
pero, o sea, sí tienes una conexión, pero
and, there's gonna be some friction,
siempre va a haber fricción.
But you have to have confidence that over
Pero
time
tienes que tener confianza
they'll
que
be
con el
amending.
tiempo
So
se van a
don't let the
sanar.
immediate pressure
Entonces no
burden you too
dejes
much.
que
Have
la
a broader
presión
picture. In
inmediata
time,
te
it will go
perjudique.
away
Fíjate en
if
la
you conduct
imagen más
yourself
amplia
in ways that I've
y
suggested.
compórtate de las formas
It
que
will go
sugerí
away.
y todo va a evaporarse.
And they'll have more acceptance of you
Y te van a
over time,
aceptar más
especially
y
if
más
you
con el
actually
tiempo,
advance Krishna
especialmente si
consciousness
vas a
and
avanzar en la conciencia de Krishna.
character and so forth. Oh, this is from Wendy Alvarado. Okay. Glad I could be helpful, she says.
Bueno, me
Jai,
alegro
muchísimas gracias.
que te
And
pudo ayudar.
de nada.
Y él respuesta,
Okay, so
contesta
that's
de
good.
nada.
We went a little over time. Even.
Bueno, nos
Thank you
pasamos
for
del
all your
tiempo.
questions. Good company.
Muchas gracias por las preguntas y la compañía y nos vemos la semana que viene. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Ki Jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Gaur Premanande
Jai
Ki
Gaur,
Jai.
Jai Nitya.
Jai Gaur Jai
Thank
Nitai.
you, Gurudev. So I'm going to do some announcements.